Have you ever given a presentation and afterwards a CEO came up to you and said, "Hey, can I ask you for some advice?" If yes, legend. If not, in this video I want to share 3 simple yet powerful ways that you can actually make this happen. And I've learned them from one of the best public speakers in the world, and he's called Eric Edmeades. Step number 1. So I first met Eric in a 5-day training that I attended of him in Estonia. And the training started at some days at 9 a.m. and ended at 2 a.m. 16, 17 hour long days. And I thought, this will be brutal. And the most brutal part, I thought, because 2 or 3 times a day, he did 2 to 3 hour Q&A sessions. And I thought, no way, will those be engaging? But the crazy thing was that when somebody asked him a question, for instance, "Hey Eric, you presented in front of 10,000 people. What would you do if you forgot what you wanted to say?" He launched into a story and shared a moment where he actually did present to 10,000 people, lost what he wanted to say and found a way out, and then shared a lesson with us that really was simple to understand. And now I feel confident that even if I lose my words in front of 10,000 people, that I know exactly what to do to recover. And he did this in every Q&A session. Somebody asked a question, he shared a story and the takeaway. And I was on the edge of my seat for more than 4 days. And I've seen so many boring corporate presentations because I give a lot of public speaking trainings in companies. But what the most captivating people do, and especially the ones that actually get the CEO to ask them advice, is that they share and use stories everywhere. In a Q&A, when they start and launch into a presentation, during a presentation, to end a presentation. Stories are incredible. If you look at the world champions of public speaking, all they do essentially is share stories. Eric, the best presenter I've seen, shares stories. Tony Robbins shares stories all the time. And it doesn't even matter if you know all those people or not, but if you share stories, your CEO will actually start asking you for advice, especially if you tell them well. And in order to tell them well, that's where the next step dives in. So I really was wondering myself after the workshop, because Eric shared stories and I was super captivated. But then some people, I don't want to point any names, but some people in my life, they shared stories all the time and I was super bored. I didn't want to listen. They kept on rambling and they were not really interesting. And I wondered, what is the difference between the ones that are magnetic, that we want to listen to, the ones where the CEO actually asks for advice, and the ones that are average, boring, etc. And one of the biggest difference was how they told their stories. And this is a technique from the creators of South Park, and it's called but therefore. So what most people do when they share a story, they say, "Hey, so I was in Vietnam, and then I went to the cinema, and then I got popcorn, and it was a super nice movie, and then I went home, and then, end." It's boring, right? But what the best storytellers do, they jump between but and therefore. So for instance, I walked home from the cinema, but then suddenly on the floor, I saw a $100 bill. And I thought, well, that cannot, what's going on? I never found a $100 bill. So I bent down to the floor and I picked it up and I kept walking. But then 2 meters later, I saw another $100 bill. And this is a true story, by the way. And therefore I bent down, picked it up, and I thought, I don't know, something seems very off. I even started thinking about the Vietnamese mafia that somebody told me about. I walk another step and I find another $100 bill. And by the point where I had $700 bills in my pocket that I found on the road, I hear mopeds So I'm gonna finish the story later. But you see, I jumped from but, I saw the dollar bill, to therefore, where you are not required to say the word therefore, so I bent it down and therefore I did this. If you keep jumping between the two, you will tell stories so much more captivating. And the earlier you say but, the better. But, if you say last week I was in Munich, but then this happened. it's way more interesting than if you set all this context of why you're there. Just launch into the first but. But if you don't use the last technique when it comes to storytelling, and if you really want people, the CEO, to ask you for advice, that is one of the most powerful things that all the best presenters, all the best storytellers do. All the people where the CEO would actually think of asking them for presentation skills advice. So if you think back to the story I told, where I walked home, but then I saw the $100 bill, I essentially in that moment, I had a conversation with myself. I directly started thinking, is this the mafia? Should I even pick it up at this point? And at the 7th, I was thinking, no, this doesn't feel right. So when I heard the moped going on, I sprinted home, sprinted to the hostel, and I was shaking in my bed out of excitement that I kind of survived, and I had $700 as a backpacker. So what I did in this moment, I shared the dialogue I had with myself, meaning I shared my thoughts. I was thinking this, and if you play back the story, you can tell that those are often the moments where you feel most captivated, the most interesting parts of the story at least. But the next day, I woke up and I saw the $700 bills, or 7 $100 bills, and I went to the guy at the hostel reception because they looked a little bit burned, and I found it a bit odd, so I wanted to check if they're correct. So I gave him a $100 bill and I asked him, hey, is this real money? You see, in this moment, I repeated what I said in the moment, so I shared the dialogue again. And he looked at the $100 bill, and I was thinking, come on, like, tell me. See, again, sharing the dialogue. But then he looked up and said, no, those are not real. What we do in Vietnam, at the end of the year, our New Year celebration, which is in February in Vietnam, we buy fake $100 bills, burn them, and throw them into the air. And everything I thought was all made up in my head, which is very funny enough. It's the same like the doubts that many people have when it comes to presentation skills. So now that you know how to tell stories and using them in a way that your CEO will actually maybe one day come to you and ask you for advice, you can also watch this video next, where I share 20 powerful lessons I've learned from investing over 50,000 euros and $50,000 into presentation skills. See you there.